For the first time since he left office 18 months ago, former President Trump has returned to Washington, D.C. to deliver a speech to a conservative group aligned with the MAGA movement. Trump is set to give the closing address at the America First Policy Institute's America First Agenda Summit. For more on Trump's visit, let's bring in ABC News political director Rick Klein. So, Rick, I guess let's just start with what's the America First Agenda Summit about, and what are we likely to hear from the former president?
It is the Trump agenda in exile, and there are a lot of different groups kind of splintered off that are trying to represent what former President Trump represented and what he might represent going forward. In fact, Peter Navarro, the former Trump aide, even urged Trump not to attend because he says this is not the true carrier of the Trump flame. But the bottom line is Trump decided to make this his return to Washington. So we're hearing from people like former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, maybe possible future Speaker Kevin McCarthy, to try to showcase the degree of Republican unity that continues to surround everything Trump. There are limits to that unity, which is also on display today. But Trump set to make this speech in one of the more highly anticipated events of his post-presidency.
Now, Trump's former Vice President Mike Pence, also in D.C., he spoke at the Young America Foundation's convention earlier today, where he was asked about his relationship with Trump. Let's listen.
And I'll always be grateful for the opportunity to serve as vice president. So I don't know that our movement is that divided. I don't know that the president and I differ on issues, but we may differ on focus.
So, Rick, is Pence's political career viable, you think, after the backlash he faced following January 6th? And I'm wondering if he could, in the end, become a rival to former President Trump and actually run against him in 24.
Yeah, it's only viable, and that's only possible if what he just said is right. If Republican voters agree that the agenda is similar enough or the same enough, the difference only being whether you're going to look backwards or look forward. One of his big problems, and I think there's a lot of them, but one of the big problems is that Trump has made the focus on the last election the singular issue, the defining issue of his post-presidency. He continues to maintain fictions around that election, the fictions that famously Pence himself called out by deciding to certify those votes. There's no sign that Trump has backed down from those false claims about the last election, and that leaves the Trump voters, many of them very much split. We've heard from some of them out as we've talked to people around the country, Alexis, and some say they're still foursquare behind Trump. Some say they're weary of him. Some say they would park their support with Pence. There are also, though, a raft of more ambitious, younger Republicans who are ready to take that mantle if they can grab it.
So Trump's visit to D.C. comes on the heels of Mike Pence's former chief of staff's appearance before a federal grand jury. How significant is that for the Justice Department's investigation?
Well, we know that Mark Short, that former chief of staff, appeared under subpoena. We don't know anything about what he said or what the substance of the investigation might be. But keep in mind how critical the testimony, not just of Mark Short, but many people in and around the vice president have been to the January 6th proceedings. Whether or not Pence ever participates in the January 6th committee, and we have reason to believe he won't do so, his fingerprints are all over the testimony that's been out there. And our colleagues, Catherine Falders and Jonathan Karl, reported today that the January 6th committee is trying to get testimony now from the former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. We've only heard from one Trump cabinet secretary so far. And the people in and around the Pence orbit, I think, are important players in explaining what happened that day.
You know, Rick, what is your biggest takeaway right now when it comes to Trump's political influence on the GOP, especially during recent primary elections? Do you believe the January 6th committee hearings have made an impact?
I do see real signs of the impact in public polling, also in anecdotal results. We know that Trump hasn't won all the endorsements that he put out there. He lost very spectacularly in Georgia a few weeks back. He's won more than he's lost, even in places that are competitive. A big test next week in Arizona, where he and Mike Pence are actually on different sides of a very competitive gubernatorial contest. Bottom line is I think Trump has lost significant traction and significant ground with Republican voters. Not to say his base is dumping him. That's not going to happen, spoiler alert. But it is to say that there are a good number of Republicans who feel the urge now to look elsewhere for potential support because they're either weary of what they've seen from Trump, disgusted by what they've seen, or because they're making a political calculation that he's just too polarizing a figure to be the right candidate for 2024.
All right, Rick, thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.